if you're showing up deeply as yourself, you've won. There is nothing after that.
What do you think we fear more? Losing the life we know or stepping into a life we can't yet imagine?
I was a classroom teacher for almost 10 years or so. I ended up leaving the classroom because I was telling all my students to follow your dreams and live your biggest life, and I wasn't doing that. I was killing my creative dreams.
That's such a crazy mind shift because we have been conditioned to want everything yesterday.
You don't need a Lamborghini. You don't need all these things to feel validated. You can find them in genuine human connection. You can find them in love. You can find them in community.
A strong enough why will sustain you through any rejection possible.
Say it again. Absolutely. Feeling lost is something that the world has again told us. Because if we play by their rules, we haven't found the pathway, so we must be lost. I know what it's like to go to a job and hate it. I know what it's like to waste so many years and just kind of another year goes by, another year goes by. And
Adam, from a professional standpoint, what does success look like for you? And perhaps you could talk about the fields that you're currently in.
sure, yeah. So I come from a kind of multi-hyphenate artist, creative, winding path kind of thing. And so I try to disassociate myself from the word success quite a bit. For me, at least, there's a lot of unlearning that has to happen. I started my career in the public education system in the States, and so we have a very clear idea of you need to get good grades, and you need to go to this particular college, and you need to have these things. I have found that even when I tried to follow those rules, I was deeply unhappy. And so in that sense, I think success is an extraordinarily personal thing. It is what you find meaningful. There is no way to compare that to anyone else's journey. And so I like to think that at the end of the day, it's that you're in alignment with your values, you're doing what you care about, you're leaving an impact on the world, and that you get to go to bed at night. And when you stare at the ceiling, you are, even if you didn't get kind of what you wanted, maybe out of that day or out of that moment, you can say that you tried your best, that you lived with integrity, and that you did the kind thing. I think kindness is important to success. But again, that's my version, and I give room for every iteration of that to exist. But I believe that the whole heart of it is that you have to figure out what you care about, and that's how you'll make sense of success. That's how I would answer that, at least.
No, that's actually a beautiful definition. I quite like that. The question is, how do you go about finding what you care? Because many people feel lost. Many people don't. They're lost in this uncertainty and they don't know where to look. They see others realize the greatest dreams and they see others having all figured it out, but they feel lost. What is it a direct path into finding the thing that you can, the thing that you're good for? How does the process look like, or perhaps how has it looked like for you in your life?
Sure. Yeah. I think that's a very common feeling. I would imagine that the vast majority of people are actually quite lost. But I also think the reframe is important here, is that it's not a sense of necessarily being lost, but more so seeking like a capital T truth in that sense. Genuinely, I think it starts with slowing down and understanding, again, kind of what you care about. I'm a big believer that personalizing your narrative is very important to taking steps in the right direction. And again, I say this as a public school teacher for more than a decade. I was part of the problem that I was telling students to do X and then Y and then Z and just follow the path that we had deemed for them. And I think there's a whole bunch of unlearning that we all have to do to say, that's what I was told. That's the household I was raised in, the culture that I grew up in, whatever it might be. You have to slow down and really sit with yourself. I always suggest, for me, it's a cup of coffee. I put on good music. I go outside. I get some sunlight and some vitamin D. But I just sit and I really sit in that discomfort. And I go, but what do I want? What do I care about? What are the things that I see value in? And I think like that's the place to start. I don't I think a sense of feeling lost is something that the world has again told us. Because if we play
Mm.
by their rules, we haven't found the pathway, so we must be lost. I don't think anyone is lost. I think there might be a fog that somebody else put there. I think the world put there, education put there, etc. Somebody outside. That's what's kind of coming in. What we have to do is take a second and understand that that's somebody else's voice, that's somebody else's opinion and their story, and we don't have to subscribe to any of that. It is so hard, and
Mhm.
I say this as someone who practices this every day, and I try my best to. I'm not very good at it, but I try my best to get better at it every day. Um, but I think that sense of slowing down, checking in with yourself, and a lot of that is also kind of having some very honest moments with what are the things that you genuinely care about and what are you willing to do to get there, because it's
Mhm.
not so much thinking about it, but it's certainly the action that you then take to actually make that a reality. So in that sense, I don't think anyone's lost. I think that they're just reasonably disoriented by the silly things our world puts on us, but I think everyone is capable of kind of finding their kind of north star, their kind of guiding truth.
That's a great frame, actually. And as you said, you have to deliberately make effort every single day. But the thing is, we are distracted. Even the moment when you decide you're going to sit down and do this practice and have some introspection and put some effort into realizing who you are and what you truly want. We have notifications, we have to-do lists, we have the expectations of our friends, family, and our immediate circles. And it's very difficult to master the focus and master the courage to say no to everything else so that you can enter that flow state and take the time to actually do the work, because it takes work. It's not easy. As I said, you do it every day and you didn't stop doing it once you felt comfortable. You keep doing it because it's a never ending process.
Absolutely. And I think there's something to be said too, that there there isn't a stopping point, because I think that again subscribes to the idea that you are lost and now you are found.
Mm.
I think it's exactly as you're saying. It's just getting in alignment every single day, because to that point, and I think for me at least, like once that spell was broken and I understood that it wasn't, because again, I subscribed to an old idea of somebody else's narrative of, well, I need to have it now. I need to have my job. I need to have my vision. I need to have my this. Um, and it's not a straight line. It's not linear. It's not A to B. It is a winding path. It is a mess. It loops around. It spirals. It's chaotic. It's fun. It's exciting. It's terrible. It's stressful. And so in that sense, it is daily, if not moment by moment, realignment to say, I know social media will tell me this. I know if I ingest too much trauma from the news, I'll feel this. I know if I talk to these people, my energy will get drained quickly for these reasons. And really kind of understanding where are the things that you kind of get light from and what are the things that kind of drain you of that light. And I think that kind of mapping out your current circumstances, and again, being honest with yourself. And it's not saying that you dislike a person, it is simply understanding that different people's energies affect you in different ways. I think being sensitive to that is a good place to start, because that's the only way that you're going to understand kind of what are the things that help you get in alignment, and to the point you're just making, what are the things that kind of take it all away in a single instant.
Right. Right. Learning to swim in that sea of chaos is like the skill to have in 2025.
Absolutely.
So, okay, Adam, you are an actor, a pianist, a singer, a guitarist, speaker, and a coach as of recently. These are a lot of disciplines to juggle. How do you prioritize? How do you choose which discipline to focus at? And simply, how do you find the time to improve in all these professional avenues that you've chosen? It's just fascinating.
Yeah. It's funny. I always think that this goes back to the idea of being a musician. And I know tons of other fields have similar things. For me, the easiest metaphor, because of the world I know, is studying an instrument. Um, there's a quote that the terrible thing about practicing is that it works, and just in the sense that if you just keep doing something, you will learn. And so, to that point, what I have tried to embrace, and again, going back to my own, I thought I had to be one thing. Part of my journey, why I'm here, why I'm thrilled to be talking with you. Thank you for the opportunity, by the way. And I don't think I said that earlier. Is that I am a mess of things. And that's exactly what I think everyone is. I want to
Mm.
share the 70, 80 things that I like to do, um, because I think that we all have things that we like and we don't need to necessarily focus on one thing. Again, that's also my perspective. I give room for people who are solely focused on that one thing. I just like too many things.
Mhm.
And so, in that sense, what I think comes with that, and I've always kind of, I think I've always thought this, or at least, I don't know, I've just always kind of been attached to this idea that I know I'll get there in time. And so, in that sense, my goal was never to necessarily monetize all of these things so that I would have an empire of piano playing and acting and coaching. And it was just because I cared about them all. And prioritizing it just to me is not something I even think about. I'm fortunate that I get to do this and I get to practice it. And so any opportunity I get to practice it, I want to practice it.
Mhm.
And so in that sense, depending on the day, depending on where I am in that alignment, depending on kind of what my schedule allows, depending on kind of the responsibilities I have for my family and loved ones and friends, um, I just kind of I pick up the paintbrush when it's in front of me. And if I don't get to that painting for a few months or a year, I may be rusty, but I never forget. Every time I sit down at a piano, I always remember how to play it, regardless of how many months have gone by. I know how to stand in front of people and talk, regardless of how many months go by. And so, in that sense, I think behind that is an understanding that there is enough time. And I had to learn that because again, that's an unlearning of just, oh my God, well, I have to do it now. And I have to have it perfect. And who am I if I'm not award-winning actor this, or I'm not a millionaire by 30 at this or whatever. Like this all just seems so crazy to me. I don't know how anyone could live like that. Or at least when I tried to, I just feel like my stress was at an unhealthy level.
Yeah.
And I felt sick. I couldn't sleep. And I just thought, that seems crazy, Adam. Like, why would you choose to live in that way? And so I do it all because I love it all. And that's the only thing I've ever cared about. And then I've been so fortunate that I think kind of existing in that way has offered me some opportunities that I can't deny when I solely focused on one and I said, I'm going to be amazing at this. When I had the opportunities, I think I just came off as really desperate. I just like, I
Mm.
needed it
Yeah.
and I wasn't really authentic. And so when I'd sit down at the keys or I'd go in for an acting audition for a TV show or whatever, I thought I had to be something. And then I would screw it up and and then the self-talk would get really negative and I'd spiral because I felt like I had to nail it every time. And so there's a sense of kind of bringing a sense of authenticity to everything I do. And with that is again slowing down. I don't know why this is the movement today, but like
Yeah.
aligning myself and kind of just existing and having that be enough. I think that's kind of the heart of it. Just let it be enough, you know?
Yeah, what you're saying is so very relatable. And I believe many of the people who are watching this will relate to. And you said something beautiful before how I know I will get there in time. And that's such a crazy mind shift because we have been conditioned to want everything yesterday. A millionaire by 25. You're still a kid. You know nothing. You're so naive and arrogant and ignorant, and you want to be whatever CEO, whatever millionaire, or whatever is the crazy goal. But this is the thing: is you are not happy in the meantime. You're not optimizing for. Actually, let's forget happy. You are not optimizing for a meaningful and well-lived life. You are anxious every step of your way. For what? So that you can show your accomplishment to someone from high school on Facebook or some strangers on Instagram for likes. And I think I can sound from your voice that you are enjoying that what you're doing. And at the end of the day, that's what life is about play and about the enjoyment of day to day. So it's a very nice take you have there.
Thank you. Thank you. And I appreciate you kind of highlighting that because I think it's so important is understanding the why behind the action. And I can say this as someone who I remember sitting with myself not too long ago because for me, I loved doing theater when I was a kid. I loved doing music. But when I really, in my adulthood, when I really sat with myself, I couldn't deny that a part of my journey was seeking fame. And behind that was seeking validation. Is
Mhm.
that if I was famous, or if I was an Oscar nominated actor in whatever movie, or if I was a Grammy award winning musician or whatever, that that meant to me and maybe to the world, whatever I was seeking, was that, oh, I needed people to tell me I was good at this to feel something like, oh well, if I'm just sitting playing piano by myself, I must be a failure. I must be something
Absolutely.
must be wrong with me. And so when I really sat with that, it just like logically didn't make sense to me. I thought, am I really trying to do this just because I want people to like me, or I want to have some sense of legacy of like, look how good I am at this? And so when I really thought about it, uh, and that's kind of what led me into speaking and coaching and kind of working with people more, is I was in it for the wrong reasons.
Mhm.
And so now I do it because I love it. And surprise, surprise, now I'm fortunate that I get work. I get work as an actor and a musician because I bring joy, or I try to. I try to bring joy into everything that I do. So it's not just ego. It's not just ego or validation or whatever crazy stuff I was seeking. Is that I'm just trying to exist. And I can't, for anyone who's listening, like, please. And again, this is my journey. I don't mean to say anyone should do anything a certain way, but I just imagine most people are seeking human connection regardless of what they do. I imagine we both care about this because we're two people meeting who get to just connect in an authentic way. I'm sure you meet a lot of people who just want to, talk about their book or do what, like, which is great
For
and
sure.
fine. They're
For
allowed to
sure.
do that. I'm someone who I love genuine connection. It's cool to just talk to you and get to know you and you know about me and so at the end of the day, if that's it, if that's what I'm seeking, and I've made that decision like in the past, that'll inform every decision that I make. Because if I'm just showing up and being myself and connecting with people, then the stuff to that point of patience, like the things that are kind of going to happen are going to happen in the way they need to happen. And the rest is just me showing up. So I'm just going to keep showing up in this way and hopefully things will happen. And then if they don't, then it's data. Then I know, like, oh, this didn't work for these reasons. I do need to have more of an edge, or I do need to think more strategically about this. Um, so yeah, I just think we could all kind of take we could all be so much kinder to ourselves. That's all I'm trying to say. Be kind to yourself. I promise it starts there at the very least.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that, and I love the passion behind it too.
I care so much about it. It's why I want to be a speaker. Or have more speaking opportunities, I should say. Um, I want to shake versions of my younger self.
Hmm.
I wasted so many years stressing about things.
We all have. We all
We
have.
all have,
We all
exactly.
have.
I feel like there's a commencement speech before the commencement speech. Like there's somebody sitting at the end of maybe high school or college, whatever it might be, who says, "Here's everything about life." But I can say, I don't remember what my commencement speech was. I have no idea what advice they said. I'm sure it was good though.
Mhm.
So thinking of like, how can we sprinkle that in throughout the education system so that it's not just, hey, here's life, but we're teaching you the skills. We're, teaching how to be kinder, teaching how to be patient, teaching that like you don't need a Lamborghini, you don't need all these things to feel validated. You can
Mhm.
find them in genuine human connection. You can find them in love. You can find them in community. Like imagine if we had that sprinkled throughout our lives, we'd all be so much happier, so much lighter. You know what I mean? So that's something that I really care about. So excuse my passion. I just really care about this stuff.
No, that's lovely. So you have recently transitioned into becoming a coach, and I would love to know exactly what made you move to coaching. I suppose you could focus on acting, which you've been doing for a while and is something you've mastered and you're already good at. Why not necessarily leave that behind, but why focus on something you've never done, something you suck at, and something, you are statistically destined to fail until you make it, but it's very difficult. So why did you make that change? What made you change?
I was so fortunate that I was in a chapter of my life, and I speak from an enormous place of privilege because, like, I was a working actor, and I know how rare that is. Everyone tells you, "Oh, you're gonna live on the street," and I live in New York City, and I'm an actor. It's like, oh, so you essentially have no money and you lead a terrible life. All these weird stereotypes that we have. I was very fortunate that I was able to pay my bills as an actor. And that was a dream I had since I was a kid. And what was so wild was that it was about a year ago now. I I was the lead in this show, and it was a respectable theater, and I was trying my hardest, and the reviews were great, and it's one of those things. It's like everything should have been perfect, right? I was living this beautiful, perfect life, and I was so sad, and I couldn't quite figure out why.
Hmm.
Um, and in those quiet moments when I was trying to get in alignment, I thought, Adam, you have everything, dude. You have everything. I wasn't rich by any means, but I was fortunate to have a fulfilling moment. And how rare that is in this world. Oh my God. And I was like, and I was grateful to be having it. And yet I was so sad. I felt so lonely. I felt so, I felt like I hit this wall where like I got to the end of the rainbow, and instead of there kind of being like gold, there was like dog crap. I was like, what? Like this doesn't make sense. Like this is the thing that is supposed to work. And I had this moment where I really thought about kind of like what are the moments in my life that have been the most fulfilling. And I can't deny that part of them certainly were on stage if I was doing a theater show or whatever it was, but a lot of it was just when I was helping someone. Which sounds corny, but it's true. Like the memory that comes to mind was I remember I was living in Chicago at the time. There was a terrible snowstorm, and I remember there was a car that was stuck on the side of the road, stuck in the snow. And I remember running over and helping a few strangers who also just nobody knew each other, and we helped push this car out of this snowbank, and the car went on their way. We didn't say anything. We all just then went on our ways. And like moments like that to me are special. Just random people coming together. They don't care who got credit for it. Like they just exist. And I was like, why is that more important to me than when I took the bow on stage when I was in the, whatever, whatever. And so I started my life in public education. I was a classroom teacher for almost 10 years or so. I ended up leaving the classroom because I was telling all my students to follow your dreams and live your biggest life. And I wasn't doing that. I was killing my creative dreams. I thought I had to get a real job and be an adult and blah, blah, blah. Again, more other people's stuff. And so when I was at this kind of sad low point, I thought there's got to be a way to kind of combine these things. Like, how can I kind of do something that is at the crossroads of all the things that I care about? And I learned about coaching. I thought it was an absolute scam. Everyone claims they're a coach or they can, they can change your life
Yeah.
and blah, blah, blah. And I'm a New Yorker. And so I think everyone's trying to scam me out of something.
Exactly.
And so I was like, this can't be real. And so my cynical self signed up for a coach to be a coach. I signed up for the coaching program, skeptical of what coaching was.
All
And
right.
I was ready to expose these clowns for what they were. I was like, y'all are just trying to sell,
Uh,
your online classes or your whatever. And unfortunately, I became a better person. Unfortunately, I learned a lot and I humbled myself quite a bit. And what I realized is that for me at least, with my kind of like creative background, is that there wasn't anything between therapy and artistry. There just seemed to be this big leap between the two, and coaching kind of filled this block. That it was brain chemistry, it was support, it was kind of like strategic planning and accountability, but it wasn't therapy, and but it like it kind of did everything. It did everything that I wanted it to, and at the heart of it is active listening, and it's exactly what we were talking about. It's human connection. It's sitting with someone, and there's a way to hold space for someone so that you can kind of prime their brain to dream and to dream about cool stuff, and then to actually form some neural pathways where they want to make sustainable change. And so this whole world opened up to me, and I thought, oh my God, this was here the whole time. And so it's not mantras, it's not like astrology, like it's evidence based. I guess with the right coaching program, I should say. I'm sure there's a lot of crazy stuff out there,
with
but
yours.
yeah. But this stuff that I'm learning about is real, it's genuine. What I'm essentially doing in this path is that I'm trying to help younger Adam. I'm trying to find and see, because I know what it's like. And excuse me if I get emotional for this. It's like I know what it's like. I know what it's like to go to a job and hate it. I know what it's like to waste so many years and just kind of another year goes by and another year goes by. And I dated the wrong people and I lived in cities I hated and I did jobs I didn't like and I was pissed at everything. My boss didn't do this enough or my partner didn't do that enough and like just this rain cloud. And it wasn't a brain chemistry thing. It wasn't necessarily an anxiety, it wasn't a depression. It was just kind of a rain cloud. And I couldn't conquer it. I couldn't quite get over that. Um and I've learned that I kind of needed a little bit of like a friend. I needed a human being
Mm.
to help kind of just help push me a little bit. I needed kind of like it wasn't a teacher, it wasn't a mentor, like it was kind of what now I would call a coach. I needed somebody to work with that I felt safe enough to kind of get all this out and to hear the things I want out of my life. I wanted it to be forward thinking. I wanted it to be action oriented. And I've kind of developed a curriculum and a way that I do things that I think is from everything I know about studying education and studying passion and motivation. I cram that all into kind of like what I try to do with the people that I work with, which is just kind of get their life in alignment. I try to help people get in alignment and then do the things that they really want to do. And so that's a long-winded way of saying I got into coaching because I realized there was more to life than just my own ego and my own weird
Yeah,
dreams. And it's a lot more fulfilling when you help other people. And it adds a lot more meaning, fulfillment, joy, and light to your life when you help other people find their light.
exactly. So you essentially became the person you needed the most while growing up, whilst in the difficult times, in a
Yeah.
way. And
Yeah.
but funny, you mentioned how you were this person who dated the wrong people and who had all these wrong misconceptions about life, and you did the wrong things. But isn't that the journey? If you don't go through those things, if you don't hit your whatever rock bottom is for everyone, all those difficult circumstances, you don't get to appreciate the good times. You don't get to build the character that makes you the wonderful person that you are today. So in a way, although you said you've been through these things, I like to see that as the necessary path to excellence and to greatness. So people should not be afraid to go through those things. And most people are going through those things right now as we speak. So all it takes is a reframing and perhaps listening to conversations like this or to coaches like you to help them reframe and help them, get their mindset together. Because what you're going through, it's not an impediment. It's necessary to wherever you want to go.
I would agree with that. The only thing I would tweak about that is I think there is make sure you're suffering for the right reasons.
Mm,
For me, and a lot of the people that I work with, I would say I'll say this for me. For me, it almost felt like a directionless suffering. Like
mm,
I was just kind of sulking and just I was just kind of treading water in this weird
yeah,
world. Where to that point, yes, I think that one of the big things about what I do is I nor any coach nor any human can essentially teach anyone it. Like you have to go through your own journey. Um, but that sense of rock bottom is that you don't need to sit in your rock bottom for as long as I did. I wasted years just kind of in the rock bottom going, well, I guess I'm stuck here. And so my thing is that if you feel that way, don't be afraid to ask for help
right,
much sooner than you think. And again, taking away that narrative that it's like, I need to figure it out. I need to have all of my things together. I need to make sure that it's worthy of whoever's approval or whatever. Like, ask for help. It's okay. There are people who want to help you out. So, yes, just make sure you're suffering for the right reasons.
exactly. Personally, what identities, labels, or roles did you have to let go to fully step into your reinvention as a person and find the right path, which you are now?
It's a great question. I think for me, a lot of it was the idea that I had to let go of the idea that I am one thing.
Hmm.
I think it was uh, everything that I was taught, and certainly as a musician, is that it would be crazy for music. I went to school for music. It would have been crazy if a professor said you have to focus on these 6 instruments all at the same time. You do one and you practice that one and you do that one. And so I was under the idea that I had to be. It was almost like my name, comma, and the thing that I did. Adam LaSalle, comma, pianist. Adam LaSalle, comma, actor. Um, and it looked funny in my brain to see Adam is an actor, coach, speaker. Da, 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 da. But I was like, but that's it. But I am all those things. I'm all of those things and more, as everybody is. And so it's funny. And I had read every self-help book and I had watched every piece of content I could, and it just didn't stick. But like, it really is a mindset thing. And it sounds corny and easy, but it's like, we are our harshest critic. We just get in our own way. And so in that sense, I think the biggest thing that I had to let go of was that I was one thing, or that any human being is one thing. We are all everything. We're all a ton of things. And so like, that again is giving yourself permission to exist in a messy state, and kind of in an everything state. So I'd say, be your everything. Do your everything. There is enough time. Do it all. Do it all.
Nice. I like that. And what do you think we fear more? Losing the life we know or stepping into a life we can't yet imagine?
I'm sure that's for everyone to decide in their own way. I would imagine, though, that the transition between those two is the scariest. It's the idea that you have to let go and go into free fall. And so you have no idea what's next. And that discouraged me for years. I didn't know how someone could take a leap and not know, because I'm a planner. And so I need to have everything laid out. But I would imagine if people are connecting with any part of my story, is that that you might be like me, and that the idea of leaving your comfort zone for anything is just a crazy idea. Because you hear stories of everyone who tries and they fail, or like, oh, this percentage of actors are successful, or this percentage of business owners are successful, and so you just think, well, who am I to believe that I could be in that 1%? I'm just an ordinary human. I'm just an average person in my average life and my blah blah blah. And that again is somebody else's stupid stuff that they put in all of our heads.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I would imagine if people connect with this, then it's just right between those two. It's when you leap and you go, God, I hope there's something that's going to work out. And I promise, if you take the risk, it'll be worth it, regardless if you fall on your face and belly flop, or it leads to extraordinary success. You will never regret it. You will always be happier that you tried. Things are reversible. You can go back to that life. You know what I mean? So like, why not try?
Yeah, we mostly regret the things we didn't do, the chances we didn't take. Those are the regrets that cripple most people at the late age, the what ifs. So
Absolutely.
as you said, it's worthwhile even if you fail, because now you know. Now
Yes.
you know. And something I'm realizing lately, and I'm almost 30 now, is how by failing at something and realizing it's not for you, and realizing that not everyone will be a millionaire, not everyone will be Alex Hormozy, not everyone will be, insert whatever is your idol or someone you constantly see go viral, and realizing that that's okay, because life is more than just that. And I can live a beautiful, meaningful life regardless of whatever abstract criteria I haven't reached. And it's okay to live a normal life, because life is not about exceptionality only. Life is about living. You can enjoy your life regardless of the status that you achieve. And there is so much more nuance than just, I don't know, number of followers or people trying to network with you and giving you opportunities. Life is not just about that. And sometimes you need to fail miserably to realize it, and to finally be okay with who you truly are.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And I would even challenge the idea that like, if it's like, well, I'm not going to be X person. It's like no one should seek that. Like, you should seek your version of that.
Yeah.
You like, have a mentor, have a goal, have an idea, be like, oh, I like how they've done that. Like, what can I learn from them?
Mhm.
But also, if it's not in alignment with who you are, then it's not your thing. And that's okay because you're going to do your thing. And your thing is a particularly cool, specific thing that only you can do with your specific life and specific backgrounds and interests. Like, I was always fascinated in music school, is that,
Mhm.
like, if you look at music history, you see a very clear line of essentially like a Mozart breaking the rules and doing something, and then a Beethoven looking at Mozart and saying, I like that, but now I'm going to break the rules these ways. And then you see somebody after Beethoven look at Beethoven and go, oh, I like how they broke the rules of Mozart, but I'm not going to do Beethoven's thing. I'm going to take this thing. And like that to me always made the most sense. Like if you like someone's podcast or content or whatever, I would challenge you to say, like, well, what do you like about that? And I would imagine that a part of it is that they're doing their thing in their own way. And like, that's cool. And so my only thing would be like, I still think that even in that is like society stuff, like coming down to say, like, well, it needs to be this. It's like, no, do it your way because no one, and that's the cool, that to me is the coolest part is that like you are the answer already. Your superpower is you. Like, there's nothing you need to add, change, extract, morph. Like, just you doing your thing in the way that you care about in alignment with your values and your goals is something literally nobody else can do. You're the only person who can do it in that way and in that unique way with that background, yada, 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 yada,
Yeah.
yada. And so, like, if you're doing that, you will forge a path that doesn't exist yet, and people will think you're crazy. And that's because in their mind, well, you have to fit into this box and you have to go, oh, I'm so sorry. I don't subscribe to that anymore. I'm going to do my thing now. And
Exactly.
that's a cool position to be in because then you claim your power and then you create something totally original. And odds are the world needs that. We need you to do your thing. So
Mhm.
just keep doing your thing. So that's the only thing I would say in response to that. Yes, but I'd tweak it just ever so slightly.
Exactly. All these people we listen to in podcasts, like Joe Rogan is the best at being Joe Rogan. That's why you like him.
Yeah.
I love Robert Greene. He's unapologetically Robert Greene. And we are attracted to his ideas and to his character because of that. So yeah, try. Uh, you need to draw inspiration from someone, but still you need to find your own voice because what is the point of living a life that is not yours, of feeling like a fraud the whole time, feeling like an imposter to yourself, not to others? So it's fascinating.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit. I want to change the topic to acting.
Sure.
There are certainly many aspects of performing that one needs to master in order to give a beautiful performance. Sorry. For which, for you, which is your favorite part of your job, of acting job, and why? Is it the preparation for leading to a show? Is it the networking that you do beforehand or after? Is it performing itself? What is it for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. My absolute favorite part about being in the arts is that there's an element of it that you just can't plan. And I think that's what attracted me towards the arts in general was regardless of the work that you do, regardless of how you rehearse something, regardless of how you consider something to go, like whatever your plan is, at least in live performance, and I imagine this is the same in like the film world, but I come from kind of theater and live music. You just never quite know what's going to happen. A set piece could fall, somebody could play the wrong notes. Like there's just this sense that, and this to me feels like a good metaphor for life, is you can you can practice all you want, but there's a certain skill that you learn just by kind of jumping in when you have no idea what's going to happen and trusting that it's going to be okay. And that's the fun part to me is that if I'm prepping for a role, if I'm setting myself up for success, I always leave about 15 to 20% where I give myself permission to just have no idea what's going to happen. And because the more that I've planned and I've thought, well, this is going to happen in this way, and then this will happen in this way, and regardless of what that is, I have always been wrong. I've never been right. And the beautiful part about that is that when I do that, and I think this is a good metaphor for at least the way that I choose to live my life, if anyone else could learn from this in this way, um, what's worked for me is that anytime I've had a plan, I've been wrong. I thought this would happen in this way. I thought my career would move in this way. I thought I would, be with this person. I thought I'd have this job. life happens. It's jazz, baby. Like, roll with it. It's just be open to the fact that, like, the music's going to change. This audience member is going to
Yeah.
scream out. This set piece is going to fall over. And, like, if you are someone who needs to be like, well, this moment has to happen in this way, then you're not in it.
Yeah.
And that to me is very clear with the performers that I'm with. Some are so tightly committed to the plan that they have created that they are not willing to play jazz. They are not willing to listen. They are not willing to authentically kind of roll with it. And in my opinion, the performance suffers. If you have people that are in it, they are ready to play that game. They're ready to kind of toss the ball back and forth. And if stuff goes crazy, you just enjoy it. If anything, you kind of relish in it because you're like, oh my God, I feel alive. There's no way to know what's coming next. And I think if you approach life in that way, it makes it a lot more enjoyable because that to me, that separates people who like it versus people who love it. Like if you're someone who can relish in that and get great joy out of feeling alive in those moments, then you're in the right job. If what I'm saying stresses you out, then maybe the live performing arts may not be for you. But absolutely, the best part is in that unknown, is in the crazy, is in the there's no way we could have planned for it for these things to happen in this way. And I feel like I've made a career just getting really lucky that those moments have happened and I've been able to just kind of roll with it and we've all had a great time. And it's been some of the most enjoyable moments of my entire career, easily.
I like your metaphor about life. I think it's spot on. There's something to be said about being rigid in one's way, in your way of living, as well as in the way that you perform, and this expectation of this is how the thing should work. And again, you are doomed for disappointment if you feel that way, because yeah, if you have those sort of expectations about anything in life, what if it doesn't happen? Suddenly,
Yeah.
you're paralyzed. Like, oh, I didn't expect this. I was 100% sure it's going to go one way and it didn't. So, like, now what? But yeah, so being more free and being more comfortable in yourself, in uncertainty, certainly helps out, I think, too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so funny you say that because I think it really goes back to what we were talking about that, like, those moments to me are all about trusting yourself. Is that if you're on stage, and I think a good example is actual jazz. Like if you're a musician who plays with a band, like there are times in which like someone's going to solo or like you also have these amazing moments that you can't plan for
Hmm.
and that those are the ones that you remember. Like
Those are
when
the
a
best.
sax takes a solo and it happens to harmonize perfectly with what the piano is doing and like there's no way you could have planned for that. And yet now you have this beautiful moment that you talk about for years because you're like, "Oh my god, remember when this happened?" Like to that point, it gets back to the idea that I know that I will figure out a solution to, and such is life. Even if you screw up, you fall on your face, you get at some point the song will come to an end.
Yeah.
At some point the curtain does come down. At some point, like the sky isn't gonna fall, it'll be fine. Even if in the moment you're like, oh my God. And I think about all the times in my life that I've had a moment that are non-arts related where I thought, oh my God, this is the end. How am I going to get through this? This is the worst breakup I've ever had. This is the worst loss I've ever had. I've lost all this money. I got fired from a job, whatever it might have been. And I just think this is jazz, baby. Like, okay, what now am I available for? What am I receptive to that's about to be thrown my way that now I have the kind of emotional availability to say, hell yeah, like let's just dive in and do something and learn something new. And so, yes, it all comes down to trusting yourself. Can't stress that enough. I love that you brought that up. So true.
And it just inspired me for the title of this episode, which we're not going to know until.
Ooh, exciting.
So, no,
Jazz, baby.
just
Yes.
maybe. See, it just happens. It just happens.
Yeah, it just
It
happens.
just
Exactly.
happens. All right. So, Adam, about the industry, COVID has had a major impact in the cultural shift of society transitioning into a more home entertainment paradigm, with streaming services booming and people not spending money for cinema anymore, certainly. How has live theater been affected by this?
Yeah, this is a great question too. This is interesting too because I think geographically everyone has a different response to this.
So I would say then where you come from in the States.
Sure. Um, the entertainment industry is kind of having a bit of a reckoning, in my opinion, right now because to that point, I think a lot of people are moving towards wanting a more personalized experience. AI has certainly changed the industry enormously. It scares a lot, reasonably so. I mean, it scares me as a human, but also as an artist, writers, performers, etc. Um, but what I think, I have a sense, and I could be totally wrong. I have a feeling though, like what COVID I think taught us is that there's a moment I think where every stage actor was terrified that everything that we love to do, which is again human connection in person, was taken away in an instant. And we tried. You ask any theater actor, certainly who is living in New York, we did Zoom calls, we did virtual stuff. Like we really tried to keep the art alive, and it was very difficult for a lot of us because we didn't have that special something. The Zoom would freeze, like it's just not the same as
No,
being in
it's not.
person and just kind of like again being receptive to that kind of emotional human experience. And I can say for myself, I was scared that everyone was going to just kind of essentially want a Netflix theater. They're like, oh, well, I'll just watch it on my home screen. Like, I'll just watch it in my living room. I don't have to go see a Broadway show. I don't have to go see this underground off Broadway thing. Like, I'll be fine. What I think surprised a lot of us who were cynical about that was that everybody craved in person events so soon afterwards. I mean,
Right.
any way that we could. Performers were literally in like glass boxes and masked audience members 6 feet apart. Like, people were willing to do whatever they could
Mhm.
to see live music, to see live theater, to just support the arts, to have artists do their thing. And I think that there was like an essential quality to it that I think at least inspired me to go, oh, this isn't going anywhere. And so, in that sense, I think about AI, I think about kind of the future of the industry. I think about, again, kind of streaming services being certainly a priority for a lot of people in industries, et cetera. That I think at the end of the day, I have a feeling that the performing arts is just going to get more localized. It just means that people are going to have to support their like small town theaters or like kind of be in person and support
Hmm.
more live music. And so that being said too, is that, and I might be totally on the opposite spectrum of a lot of people from this, is that if you're in it for the reasons that you care about the art form, then the money never mattered. Like, yes, compensate
Exactly.
artists fairly, absolutely. We should all deserve to make a living doing what we love in a perfect world. That being said, I think that there's a responsibility that all actors, performers, musicians have, that we got to roll with the punches. That being said, the world is changing. Um, Make sure that, like artists are doing a lot to kind of connect with their audiences through social media, which is great. Um, but also to any audience members. Like if you are someone who is a patron of the arts, please, this is a responsibility. I'm sorry that falls on your shoulders, especially. Please make sure you support us. Like, we are trying our best to. We only want to make better art. We only want to show up more. We
Mhm.
only want to give you a more moving performance, a better live music show, etc. Um, but I think it's us kind of meeting in the middle. Like, please, we will keep showing up. Please keep showing up with us. We'll all have a great. We'll all be better off if we're in person. I promise. Um, and so that just, I think that we're going to move more towards that because I just think at some point, regardless of how good AI is,
Mhm.
we're just going to want a human being.
Absolutely.
We're going to want a human story written by humans, directed by humans, acted and sang, produced, created by humans. Like, I just have a feeling that at the end of the day, regardless of how good AI gets at these things, there's something special and original and unique that is
Mhm.
just like the flawed, dynamic, beautiful human element of it that you just can't get anywhere else. And so I think we're going to be okay. We just have to kind of make sure we're still supporting the arts in every way that we possibly can.
Yeah, there's something about human connection that you said that in a way people risk their lives to come into a show and be 6 feet apart. They risk getting sick so that they could watch this. They were craving it so much. However, that being said, I can see how theater can seem very boring. So yesterday I was in this live orchestra
Mm-hmm.
and I wouldn't necessarily go there. I listened to techno music and rave. However, that orchestra was a PlayStation concert, so they had incorporated amazing visuals with holograms from the music of these AAA multi-million games, and everyone in there was a gamer. And none of these people, you could tell, none of these people listened to this kind of music. It was like an opera and orchestra. But because they found a creative way to incorporate those two things, now not only are they listening to it, they love it. The crowd was going wild. And perhaps these people never listened to this kind of music before. Now, my question is, do you think traditional theater has lost much of its appeal because it hasn't evolved alongside other industries? In failing to modernize, has it missed the opportunity to capture, the interest of younger generations who might have been interested if the industry had reinvented itself somehow, same as this concert had yesterday?
Totally. I think that I think that behind that to me is this is a failure of music education. Um, I think that to some degree, music institutions have kind of wanted to keep this sense of like elitism and class that like
Right.
you are lucky enough to be a part of our show. You know what I mean? Um, because I think that in certain circles, I think that there is I think the flip side of that is that they just care so deeply about it. And they understand that there is a rich history to these things. That there is like it is an honor and a privilege to hear this music performed beautifully by some of the best musicians in the world. But I think that was a very isolating thing in our current world. To your point, is that we left a lot of people out. Is that they clearly were like, that's not for me. That's not the club that I'm invited to.
Yeah.
And I think for years, I think orchestras, uh, I think theaters, I think a lot of institutions are trying to kind of bring more people in. Um, to that point, I think it starts earlier, where again, we have to change the narrative, where it's that you are a part of this. This is an art form. This is an art form. Like, it's crazy to me that there's like high art. I'm like, it's art.
It's
Like,
art. Yeah.
kids do this. Like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Um, and so in that sense, like, and I say this as a former music teacher, I would always tell my students, you got to see it in person. Like, to hear a violinist play on a recording is great, but to see a violinist who's mastered their craft
Oof,
play
yeah.
live, you're just like, holy crap. Like,
Crazy.
why do I feel things I've never felt before? And then you see a symphony. You see like a timpani and like dozens of strings, and like when you see like the Lord of the Rings played live or something, you're just like, whoa. I mean, so I think there's a part of it that like exposure is so important.
Yes.
You have to see that this is accessible to you. And part of that, though, is that these institutions, even though of course they need to make money, they have to make it more accessible where people don't feel like it's costing them an arm and a leg to show up to these things. They have to be able to, on any night they want, go to the theater, see things, and also see stories that they see themselves in. And so it is, to your point, a reckoning. We
Mhm.
really have to make sure that we are appealing to everybody. And that is close to an impossible task. It's like a restaurant that serves every meal for everyone, like it is a difficult thing. But that being said, I think it goes back to like the community. Like it goes back to wherever that art institution is. Listen to the folks that are around. Listen, like, see who is around you. How can you invite them in? What stories can you tell? Like, to that point, how can you bring in people that are not usually going to come
Yeah.
and see live music? Like, and I think that to me is an easy thing to do if you just ask. And
Mhm.
I think that I just think that we are too smart of a species to be like, well, there's no way to solve this problem. I was like, I think if you have a conversation, some smart people can say, here's a way that we can make money where we can put a price on something that people say, I would want to be there. I want to see that thing live.
Mhm.
But again, I think that also starts in educating people very early on that they are welcome in this world, that everyone is welcome, that there is something for everybody if the institutions are willing to kind of meet them halfway. So I think it's kind of like, I think it's art at its truest form, which is a sense like a conversation, a dialogue between the patrons and the artists in the sense of who's showing up, what do they want to see, what are the artists creating, how can we make sure that kind of everybody wins. And I do think that's possible. It just starts with open dialogue, and we just keep the dialogue going.
Definitely possible. I think maybe the problem is not so much the patrons are not asking, but perhaps they're not listening. They're not listening to what people want. Or, as you just said, maybe it's just this elitism that might go when currently the most elite and the oldest people in this industry are going to retire, and then
Hmm.
new blood will take over and bring fresh ideas. But a lot of it could be just closed mindedness. I'm curious. I would assume that being authentic plays a major role in becoming somebody who attracts people and opportunities in your industry. In your bio, actually, you mention leading with authenticity in creative careers. What does authenticity mean to you, and how important is it?
Uh, I'll start with the latter. It is the most important.
The most important. All right.
I, I genuinely think it is the most important. Is there anything more important? I mean, maybe kindness, like I suppose, like being a good human, but I think
Mm,
authenticity actually is the most important, especially in the arts.
in the arts.
It kind of it goes back to that sense of comparing oneself to anyone else. I just don't think as a creative, and again, that's shaking off what we have been told that you have to look a certain way, you have to sound a certain way, you have to achieve a certain thing. Like this this is not something anyone actually says to my understanding, maybe not the circles that I'm in, but like what what I have been told is that, and the times that I have been behind the table when I have helped in casting in some way, authenticity resonates. I think it's what makes a compelling performance something that you talk about. It's when we see an artist on stage, a musician, a singer, an instrumentalist do their thing in their own way, that there's something so badass about that, because it takes so much courage to show up as yourself. And I think there's something so commendable that regardless of the circle you're in, the room that you're in, the opportunity that you're kind of being considered for, if you're showing up deeply as yourself, you've won. There is nothing after that,
Right.
because it's outside of your control. The only thing you have full control over is how you show up. And so, in that sense,
Mm,
I think that the only thing you can do is make the choice to not appeal to anyone else or change who you are or edit whatever it might be, is to lead with kindness and to be yourself. Because you will, exactly as you said, you will attract the kind of people that subscribe to those same ideas as you do. In the same sense that I don't expect to get every opportunity that I audition for, but I've made a lot of friends very quickly because I've been able to show up as myself, and my kind of people, my community, my the weirdos who connect with my type of weird, we vibe instantly.
yeah.
And I go, "Oh, we are clearly connected in some wild way that I have no words for." And in that sense, those are the opportunities that I've been able to feel the most fulfilled and passionate about, because not only am I doing the things that I care about in the most authentic way that I can, is that I'm then doing it in community, building community with people that agree that authenticity is the most important thing. So then we are taking our light and we are able to then work on something to then spread that light. And then people see that and they're inspired by that. And I just think it starts from there. So, but at the heart of it is authenticity, 100%.
And the people who are going to give you those opportunities, they're going to give you those opportunities because they connect with you in a human level, which it can only happen if you are authentic and genuine. So you are going to connect only when you're your truest self, when you're not rigid because you have a facade of trying to be someone to get the role or whatever. So yeah, I see how authenticity can be the most important thing when it comes to, well, almost anything.
I think so. I really do think so. Because again, to that point, going back to that alignment thing, is that if you're really navigating the world in alignment with who you are and what you value, and you're living with integrity within that, I just think that you're going to find that special thing that is only yours. And in that sense, then I like comparing yourself to anyone else would make zero sense. I think you would have the bandwidth and the perspective to understand that comparing yourself wouldn't make any sense, because they're not doing your thing your
Yeah,
way in the way that you like to do it. And so like why would it make any sense to think what they're doing it their way? And so I just think it makes everything easier. I think it makes it easier to comprehend. I think it makes it easier to kind of navigate your life. It
sure.
makes it a lot more fun. And it also makes like it it gives a sense of purpose to every day that you live. And then to that point, then setting goals and thinking strategically about what you want to do while being authentic is a journey I think anyone would be willing to go on. That is suffering worth going through to say, I do anything if I can just be as authentic as I can doing the things that I love in the way that I want to do them. And the people that have inspired me have done that. And so I just like to do that and go, I want to do that, but in my own way. You know what I mean? So like it's a full circle thing. I really think that everything kind of works to feed the next thing, but it's
Yeah.
staying authentic and reminding yourself of how to get there. That I
Hmm.
think is really at the heart of it.
Hmm. I'm thinking a young man or woman who is being authentic, but yet is still being rejected a lot, because rejection is a major roadblock in a creative's career. It certainly helps build character and resilience, but for many, facing rejection is brutal and many times the reason people give up, either because it messes up with their self-esteem or because it gives them the reality check that was long overdue. If you were to coach someone who suffers with rejection a lot, what advice would you give them? And yeah, how would you go about to help them deal with it?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would really have to know kind of what this person was doing, how they were doing it, and how they make sense of their rejection.
Fair.
So part of it too would be like, let's say this is a young actor in New York City, and maybe she's auditioning a lot but not getting any work, and she's feeling frustrated and self defeated in some way. The thing that I would uh, kind of want to know more about is what is her relationship to her craft at this time. If it is, I want to have a big career. I want to be a Broadway star. I want to make a lot of money. Um, then maybe the conversation is, first of all, why? What's behind that? And also, is there some data that we're getting that can kind of help us make sense of like, well, what is working? You got into this because you love it. So where did that start?
Yeah.
And making sense of like, can we align your vision that this is part of that journey? Inevitably, every single no actor gets parts immediately. Like we all not suck, but like I definitely suck for a long time. I mean, I still have moments where I'm really terrible, but like there's some moments that I do pretty decently. But like the thing might be, well, what can we learn to make sure that you are continuing your journey so that you see these rejections as a part of it? They're not discouraging, but they're just getting you closer. Or is that is there a self-sabotaging thing? Like, is there something behind it that I
Yeah.
was guilty of, that I wasn't showing up as my best because at behind it, I was actually like, this isn't actually for me. There's like Brad Pitt and there's the rest of us. And so like part of it was that I wasn't working as hard as I could. I wasn't doing the things I know I was kind of like supposed to be doing to really like put myself in a position where I could show up in such a way that I think I was bringing my best into the room, but also I was connecting authentically with the people behind the table. And so like it could be a number of things. Um, but it really goes back to people's why. Like, what do you care about? Why are you doing this?
Mhm.
Um, and if it is someone who's like, I want to be famous, then I would not be the best coach for them because I would say you might want to work with somebody else because I care about people who want to make an impact, who are dedicated to their dreams, and I love people who follow their dreams. It's the coolest thing in the world to me.
Yeah.
But I got to make sure that there's heart and authenticity behind that.
Yeah. A strong enough why will sustain you through any rejection possible.
Say it again. Absolutely.
And artistic pursuits are very challenging endeavors. Having to put your work out there for the world to see and scrutinize takes a certain I will do it no matter what attitude, because you will certainly be judged, misconstrued, or even plainly ignored. You will have to deal with uncertainty and face feeling like an imposter, repeatedly doubting if you are anything of significance and if you're worthy of success. So, this fear of criticism and failure is what actually keeps most people from discovering their creative side and not, having rejection defeat them.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And funny, man, I think it just really goes back to kind of sitting with yourself and understanding like what you care about and why. Because I think a part of that too is understanding who are the people in your life that you want to do this thing with. Um, Especially if you're creating something that is entirely your own. I would just recommend that make sure you're around the people that really can support you in the ways that you need to be supported. And that could be a conversation to say, hey, here's what I need in this chapter. Like I just need
Right.
I could use some friends who are I've worked so hard on this. I am deeply insecure about it. I'm going to say that I hate myself and I hate this. Can you remind me why I do this? Can you remind me of why I care about this? Because there are days in which I'm not going to think that, and I need a reminder of that. So I would just say, with that journey, be hyper aware of the people that you share your first steps with, and make sure that you have communicated what you need in those chapters, because nobody comes out of those things being like, I'm amazing and it's perfect and I wouldn't change a thing. Uh, it's a sensitive thing. It's a vulnerable place to be. And so just make sure, especially early on, because the world will criticize, like naturally. Haters are gonna hate. Just make sure that by the time you get there, you're like, yep, I knew this was part of the journey. I'm totally ready for it. I had the people around me that I needed early on to help me understand and bring out my best, so that when I got to kind of fight those giants, I was ready to take them on. So that's the only thing I would add to that.
Spot on again. Spot on again.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right. As per closing tradition for this podcast, time to ask you the last question. What do you want to be remembered for?
I hope I'm remembered for being kind. I think I think at the heart of it, everything that I'm trying to do, I do the acting and the music and everything because it feeds my soul and it lights me up, but it really allows me to show up for other people more.
Hmm.
That's really why I do that stuff, is so that I have a full tank to show up for everyone else. And that's in everyone else as in the person I hold the door open for who I'll never see again, the clients that I work with, my friends and family, etc. And so I hope at the end of the day, if I got hit by a bus right after this, which I really hope doesn't happen, but if I did, I hope that people would say, "Oh, Adam was so kind. He really tried to do good." Like I think that's at the heart of it. That's really all I'm trying to do. So I'd say I, I hope kindness is kind of what people remember me for.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So, Adam, if someone liked what you had to say today and they relate with all of your insights and they want to be coached by you, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Say hi anytime. Go to my website. It's Adam LaSalle .co, not com, just co. ADAMLASALLE.co. If you want to learn more about that, adamlasalle.co/coaching. Or you can find me on Instagram at adam.lasalle. I am this summer, my schedule is open. I'd be happy to take on some new clients. If anything that I said resonates, if you just want to talk, I'm always happy to be a listening ear. So please feel free to reach out. I'd love to hear from anybody.
I'm sure there's certainly tons of value over there. So please, please do contact him.
Thank you.
Adam, you've been fantastic. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The pleasure was all mine. Thank you so much.